Happy Friday, ladies. Charli Wall here, live streaming into my group. I hope, just want to check. And doing an episode live in the Facebook group, the Freedom Group, my Facebook community, for my podcast. And it's a question of the week this week. This week's question. Oh, so just to say, I hope you're all right. If you're watching this live with me now, please let me know. Give me a wave. Got my cup of tea. If you're watching this later, let me know. Let me know what you think of this question. Now, this is a question. I'm not going to name the lady, but this was a question that came in from one of my circle ladies, one of the women in my community. Hello, Emma. Nice to see you here. And it was such a great question. And I, once a month in my circle community, I do an Ask Me Anything. And so we have a secret circle podcast as well. And I answer as many questions that come in, and I do it for an hour, and it's always really, really good. It's good fun, and the questions were interesting. But I thought this was a great question, and I asked the lady if I could share it for this week's question of the week, which obviously is public. It goes on my public podcast, because I thought it might be one that a lot of you may have a sense of, may experience, may want to know more about. And she kindly gave me her permission. And this is the question. My question is around feeling fearful and a bit unhinged when things are going okay. I've had so much suffering over the years and allowed myself so little that things going okay almost feels unbearable and overwhelming. I'm almost scared of happiness and joy. If you could speak to this, that would be great. Hello, Simone. Lovely to see you as well. I loved your wild swimming pictures. I just love them. So what I love about this question is that there's a sense from this lady of kind of feeling into or experiencing joy, experiencing happiness, even for a moment, experiencing hope, joy, happiness, freedom, I guess. And then there are other days when this lady is experiencing a feeling of being unhinged. And I really love that word that she used, because I used to feel unhinged a lot. And I used to feel fearful a lot, and I was incredibly anxious, and I had panic attacks, and I had habits of behavior, habits of thought. And of course, for those of you that know my story, it's one of traumatic grief and habits of behavior and, bringing up my son and looking after my father pretty much single-handedly. So I realized, and I think the lady that asked the question, she says she's experienced quite a lot of trauma in her life. So she's come across this understanding that I teach called the 3 principles, and she's starting to see and feel a little bit of joy, a little bit of happiness, a little bit of hope. And it's in those moments now that she's starting to feel scared. She's starting to scare herself, basically. And what I feel in this and what I see in this is, if we don't know that life, that our emotions, that our feelings, that our thoughts, everything is moving through us, right? Like a river. It's always flowing. Everything's always moving. Everything's always flowing. But if we don't know that, our emotions are a bit like a roller coaster. If we don't know how a roller coaster works, we'll go up and we'll be feeling like this is great. And then all of a sudden we'll go down and we won't know what the hell has happened, and we'll be scared by the down, right? We don't know how a roller coaster works. That's what we'll think. We'll think, what the frick is going on here? And if we are so used to being in sadness, in guilt, in shame, in fear, those emotions are neurologically wired in our brain, in our patterning. And so your body starts to kind of almost automatically create stressful thoughts so that we stay in this unhinged feeling, in this sense that something bad is going to happen. And what that does is it activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our flight or fright system. I think I've got that right. Parasympathetic nervous system. There's two systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. I've probably got that wrong, isn't I? I'm just going to have to check that now. Somebody who's listening, please tell me. Oh my gosh, I talk about this stuff all the time and I've got a complete menopausal brain fart. So let me just check. Simpa. System. Believe this. Has anyone said anything? The parasympathetic, I did get it wrong. So, guys, thank you, Simone. It's the other way around. I knew it was. I knew it. My instinct was right. So the parasympathetic nervous system is the one that we want to encourage. It's the rest and digest, as we know it. It's the sympathetic nervous system that gets activated with a flight or fright response. And that's the one that most people are living in, a constant activation of that over and over and over again with our thoughts, with our thoughts and feelings that we pay attention to. And when we pay attention to those thoughts and feelings, it's a bit like quicksand. We kind of get sucked in to this fear and we live in that state for so many hours. And when we live in that state for such a long time, that's why people get panic attacks. It's why people have trouble sleeping. It's why people start getting dis-ease, because that causes, the stress hormone causes inflammation in the body. And inflammation is what causes quite a lot of physical health problems. So what this lady's experiencing is probably habitual fear, because she's had a lot of bad things happen to her, circumstantially bad things happen to her. And this was me too. And she's not used to feeling calm. She's not used to feeling safe. And if we don't know we're safe, if we don't know that underneath all of this psychology, all of this movement of emotion and circumstances and everything else changing, if we don't know that our grounding comes from what's in here, we will be scared. We will be scared of joy, because it's like, oh, this isn't going to stay around for very long. So I better be like on high alert just in case. And it reminds me of an innocent experience that I have. And I use the word innocent because I didn't understand about thought. And I hope you don't mind me telling you this story. But when my brother died and my father was in the hospital, I was 21, and this was obviously very tragic. I lost a lot of my friends, again, through their own innocence, because they didn't understand and they couldn't handle it. And it was very, very awful. But there were a few friends that did take care of me, like they were caring for me. And we went to the pub one night and they made me laugh. And it had been such a traumatic time, so intense emotionally, obviously. And I was back in my hometown, and I was at university in Derby, and I'd gone back to Colchester where I'd grown up. My dad was in intensive care. And so I hadn't slept, it was very, very difficult time. But there were moments where I laughed. And my friends, my friends made me laugh. And I remember thinking, I can't laugh. I have to be sad. I have to be, what would my brother think if he saw me laughing? My dad's in hospital. How can I be laughing? But because I didn't know then that my well-being, of course, in a moment can just rise up when I'm out of my thinking head, that I can experience joy at any time. It's not dependent on circumstances. I don't have to be scared and frightened all the time, although I didn't know this for many, many years afterwards. It was a moment I'll never forget, berating myself for laughing, which sounds crazy to me now, that I understand about thought, that I understand about emotion, that I understand about well-being. But if I don't know this, I'm going to be scared that my feelings of joy may not last. But that's the thing about humans, that's the thing about emotions. Because they're always moving, they don't last. Now, I spend more time in happiness, more time in joy now than I ever did. But because I take my shitty committee less seriously, and I know that life is always changing, and what's grounded me, what's stabilizing me, is knowing that this part of me in here is unbroken, can't be fixed because there's nothing to fix, and everything else is changeable. All my emotions, all my feelings, all my experiences. Hi, Simone, another Simone. And that gives me faith, and that gives me a grace that I didn't have before. So, to those of you who are experiencing high alert, hypervigilance all the time, and are worried about life and things happening, and all saying things like, well, don't get too complacent because you never know what's around the corner, and all those things that we've been conditioned to say, just hold on and keep looking for those pockets of joy, for those moments of where your well-being's just risen, where you've forgotten your worries, and keep looking there. Because when you look for your hope, when you look for joy, when you look for your wellness, when you look for your well-being, you start to see that more and more and more. But when we're focused on the bad, on the chaos, on the stress, on the worry, guess what? That's where we focus. That's what we see. But you don't have to live there 100% of the time. And if you want to know more about this and you want to explore this deeper with me, there are several ways you can do that. Obviously, I'm live in my free Facebook group, which is a wonderful community, and that's called the Freedom Group. I've got my Circle community, which is a wonderful group of women, and we do this more in depth every month, 4 times a month. And I also do one-to-one. So hopefully this has been helpful for all of you who are listening. And if you want to know any more about any other subject, please let me know, and I'll do another one of these next week. Anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And let me know if you heard anything in this. Lots of love.